Hello and welcome to my channel. If you want to join the people using secure communications via radio nodes like this one and the ISM band 868 megahertz, and you've heard of Reticulum Meshchat, then you're in the right place. And what I'm doing is showing you how to set it up to run on Ubuntu. I'm not using Windows anymore, not that I ever did much anyway, for obvious reasons. Google it if you don't know why you should leave Windows alone and switch to another OS. So this is Ubuntu 22.04, which I'm going to be using to set up the software, to flash the firmware into a node like this and show you how to use it. I'm going to be using Ubuntu version 22.04. That's 2.5 years old now, long-term support release, LTS. I like to be one release behind usually because there's 24.04 LTS, but sometimes some things don't work, especially for me anyway, especially when it's controlling electronics externally in real time and radio stuff. Sometimes the software hasn't been updated at the same rate as the new release has been released. Things like SDR++ take a while to catch up. So I usually use the previous version because it works until I know that the bugs have been got out of the software that will run on the newer LTS version. So enough said about that. I hope you're not afraid of the command line because you can see it on the screen. You do have to do a few things using the command line, but it's not too much. I'm actually running the software on a laptop, an Ubuntu Lenovo ThinkPad, and I had to swap out the main board because the USB ports has two USB ports. The one I was using, both of them have a bit worn out. It was a very old laptop, probably nearly 10 years old. And the problem when you plug in things like this, which are quite sensitive and take quite a lot of current if you haven't got a battery in the box as well, if you wiggle the plug slightly, the connection breaks, and then the connection's reset and things go wrong and you have to unplug it, maybe reboot, plug it in again, which is really annoying. I noticed this with SDR receivers as well as software-defined radios, and same with this. So I swapped over to the main board yesterday so that I've now got nice solid USB port connections. You shouldn't use recycled old hardware that you find in rubbish bins. You should spend thousands of pounds or euros or dollars on new equipment, because then it's got the built-in Snapdragon processor with AI NPU, and then yes. Anyway, so I use old stuff and Ubuntu Linux or whichever Linux distribution I need, and it works fine. I already showed you how to do this with Linux Mint, so if you've watched that, then some of this will look very familiar, but there are some subtle differences that you need to know about. So how do we do it? What are we going to do? Let's have a look on the command line, because I've actually plugged this in, this node, into the working USB port. I want to check it's plugged in, so let's do lsusb. And up there somewhere, we hopefully will be able to see, there it is. This is actually that node because it uses a Silicon Labs CP2102 UART bridge chip in it, and it looks like that. With Linux that I've used so far, you don't have to install any driver manually. It's already built into the distro and the kernel, no doubt. So it doesn't require installing anything. On Windows, you have to install the driver from the manufacturer, from Silicon Labs, from their website. scilabs.inf is the name of the driver, and then after that, maybe a reboot, it should work. But with Ubuntu, it's built in. So that's that. You also need to note these numbers here. This is the manufacturer ID, this hex number, and this hex number here. Hopefully you can see my cursor. Let's make it bigger, Control+. Boom. Maybe it's easier to see. And the second number there is the device ID that's unique to that particular chip. So we're going to need those later. Anyway, so it's plugged in, it's connected, you can see it. The other thing I want to do is check the permissions for that device, and using this command here, I'll put these in the description below. As you can see, it doesn't have read-write access for this third user group, which it needs, otherwise it won't work. So what I have to do is put in a chmod command. You can see I've done this quickly before to make sure it's going to work, but also to make the video easier. So there's the chmod command that adds read-write access for this device, which is called ttyUSB 0. And it doesn't change when you unplug it and plug it in again. On Windows, it'll appear as a COM port, and sometimes the COM port numbers are randomly assigned when the computer boots, and then you might get different COM port numbers, which can be very annoying if you thought you knew what it was. But this is always ttyUSB 0. So I'm going to stop ranting about Windows in a minute. Press enter. Oh, password. Try that one. Must have worked. Now if we go and check again using that list command, you can see yes, it has worked, because the third group here has read-write access, which is what we need, so it can be used by the computer to talk to the USB device. Problem is, if I unplug this, unplugged, and then plug it back in to a nice new USB port, if I then run that command again, you'll see that the read-write access has been lost, which is a problem. This also happens when the computer reboots, which is of course annoying. So what we have to do is write a udev rule that will save those settings and permissions for this device so that it will always have the RW in the third user position here. So I've made already and some notes where I can copy and paste that. So to write a udev rule, you have to create a file, which I will show you. Let's go up here. And I'm going to edit it with the nano editor because I know how to use that. There are plenty of other editors, but this is the one I seem to be able to use easily. And it goes in this directory /etc/udev/rules.d, and you can give it any random name you want. Apparently if it starts with a number, it's executed before the ones that start with letters. I think I learned that somewhere. So I've just called it that. So let's go and edit that file, which didn't exist. So it has been created now, and it's empty because we haven't put anything in it yet. And you need 2 lines. Maybe only the first line is necessary. I haven't tried it with that yet. I'm too lazy. So let's put both of them in. I've just copied that with Control-C. And now I'm going to do Control-Shift-V. Because in the Linux command line, paste is not just Control-V, it's Control-Shift-V. On Windows, it's right-click your mouse or trackpad. Anyway, there it is. That's the rule that's necessary. You see there's the idVendor, and that was that number we saw in the ls_usb command, 10c4, and the product ID is EA60. So those have gone in there. That sets the permissions and adds it to a group. And then there's a kernel command here also. As I said, I'm not sure if this second one's really necessary. You can try it without first, see if it works. If it doesn't, then put it in. Anyway, so I'm going to save this and exit. I do it the wrong way around, so I do Control-X to exit. Do I want to save it? Y for yes. Where's it going to go there? Yes, press enter. So now it's saved. Let's just go and have a look, make sure it's really there. Yes, it is. So Control-X to exit. So that udev rule is in there now. So if I rebooted the computer, then it would be the same as carrying out this command here, which I'm going to do now so that this works. And I'm going to check that it worked. You don't have to do this every time once you've got a udev rule. Okay, it's there. The third RW is there. So what do I need to do next? Let me think. Probably it's a good idea to install a web browser because this can be flashed via a Chrome-based browser. And on Windows, that would be Chrome or Microsoft Edge, which is also Chrome-based. And on Ubuntu, I like to use Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome. I like to use open source software when I can. So I'm going to show you Chromium web browser. And this is in the App Store for software, which is that one. They call it something else. I think it's called Software Manager on Ubuntu. Anyway, whatever it's called, here it is. I'm surprised it hasn't loaded up some suggestions down here. Normally it lists all sorts of popular software with icons, thumbnails. I don't know why it hasn't done it, but never mind. And we're going to search for Chromium. You don't have to press any buttons. You just type CHROMIUM. And you don't have to press enter. It just appears. And here, this is the one I want, Chromium web browser, open source version of Chrome. It's already installed, by the way, but let's click on it. And there it is. So it's installed, and I'm going to use it. So let's have a look, see what happens. So how would I do this? Probably the easiest way is to hope that I've already got the, yeah, I have, tab open. So what you need to do is to put in this URL into the Chromium browser, this liamcottle.github.io/rnode-flasher. And Liam is the person who wrote the software, the Reticulum Meshchat software, which is gaining popularity. You'll see more and more people are using it, and I'm getting used to how to use it. So anyway, what I want to do, before I flash the node, it's a good idea to check that we can see the node. So if you press this, detect RNode, it'll pop up something. Okay. That's interesting. It's not listing my ttyUSB 0. Very interesting. Look, it's going wrong already, this video. Isn't that amazing? So let's cancel that. Let me just go and check that it has the right permissions again. Yes, it does. And it's obviously plugged in. It's there. So let's go and look at Chromium again. And I know what the problem is. You need to set the permissions so that Chromium can directly access a USB device, which is plugged into the computer, and it's not in the settings. Normally, if you want to change your settings, you go up here and you hit the settings button, which is somewhere, and then you can change your settings. That's interesting. Oh, it's probably behind me. Anyway, we won't worry about that because I know the setting that we need is not there. And you can probably set it from the command line on Ubuntu, but the easy way is to go to the package manager or the app manager, and you click on permissions here. And if we look down here, access USB hardware directly by default is not enabled, so you have to enable it. Oh, it needs a password, obviously, because this is for security reasons. Windows allows access immediately to a USB device like that. The security is a bit less strict. One other thing I noticed when I did this on a different computer with Ubuntu was that the play audio switch was switched off, and it took me hours to work out why I couldn't play. And the problem is, when you get these problems, you Google it, like Chromium no audio or audio broken or whatever, you find a lot of solutions and huge discussions, and you get led off down all sorts of rabbit holes. And it took me a while to realize that when I knew about this, accessing USB hardware directly permission, I didn't really read all the others too much because I knew I needed to turn that on. That was always a problem for me. I didn't notice that this was turned off for whatever reason. So make sure it's turned on if you want to hear audio. I just checked it by listening to some YouTube video and it worked. So that's set the permissions for Chromium. Probably you have to restart Chromium before it can actually do that. So let's just close it. This is another machine. And then I'm going to open it again. And let's see if this time it will work. You don't need to select the product or anything. I want to detect it, so hopefully it will. So let's do detect RNode. And here we are at the bottom of the list. Ignore the one at the top, ACM0. Not sure, because it's also a TTY, a teletype device for people with 1970s knowledge of computers. That's what a TTY is, but it's the wrong one. We need ttyUSB 0, which is this one. So we click on it and we hit connect. Oh, and it worked. So the result is that that device has RNode firmware 1.79 on it. I've already flashed it, so I'm not going to flash it again because it takes a while and it's boring to watch. So it's already got it. If you didn't have that, or there was some error, because sometimes it says device is not an RNode, and you would want then to install the firmware, flash it, so then you would go to this section here and tell it what you're looking for firmware for, which is a Heltec V3 that I'm using. I haven't tried it with any other nodes yet, but it works. There's a whole long list, we'll see on the website in a moment, of other nodes you can use, but I haven't tried them yet because the Heltec always seems to work. Consumes more power, gets a bit warmer, runs batteries down faster, but it works. For example, with some BBS software I was testing, it worked on the Heltec beautifully. Anyway, so you choose that, and then there's no file chosen because I haven't chosen one. If you click on this one, doesn't tell you what version it is, but it just downloads the latest version to flash, which I think is 1.80 at the moment. And actually this node has 1.79 on because I want to keep it there for a while. But I'm not going to choose that. If you click on official firmware here, it'll open up a tab and will show you all of the firmware. So yes, 1.80 is the latest version. There are 28 assets, so that's 28 different versions of the firmware you can flash on different devices. Just checking this is still recording. Yes. So as you can see, there's a generic one for ESP32 devices. I'm going to try that when I receive a little thumbnail-sized node in the post from Seed Studio. It should work, apparently. Here's the Heltec version 3 that I've got plugged in, but you can see there's others, T114, various different devices are on here. The RAC 4631, I like those because they have lower power consumption. They run on a battery for a week with Meshtastic. So, and there are T-beams, of course. So there are quite a few different ones. I've actually got version 1.79. If you wanted an earlier version, you just click on it, like let's say we wanted that one, and then you find it again listed for all the different device types. But it's already on there, I'm not going to flash it again. What you do need to do though, after you have flashed it, you press, well, to flash, you press flash now, and afterwards you have to provision the device. I'll do that because it's quick. So you click on that, and each time you do this, you have to select the device. So it's that one, connect, and it's already provisioned. Okay, good. And the third thing you have to do to make it work, and if you don't do it, the display on the device, it's got a little OLED display, says something like hardware error or something like that, firmware error maybe. And it looks like something's broken, but it's not because you haven't done this. So you have to set the firmware hash. I'll do that. Again, you have to click on the right device. And this takes a little bit longer. So it's doing it. Okay, firmware hash has been set, so it's done it. So it's set a hash value for that particular firmware. So that's done. So the RNode is programmed and configured, ready to go, to work. We can see it in the web browser. It's always a good thing. Oh, I'm going to remember something now because I'm about to install the app, the Meshchat app. And sometimes I've found that if you have two different softwares, each talking to the same USB port, then one of them wins and the other one loses. And at the moment, this tab on this web browser is talking to that. So I'm going to close it just in case. And that frees up the USB port so the software can run. So what I'm going to do is download Reticulum Meshchat, and I think I might have it already open. Look at that. Here's one I prepared earlier. I don't like mouse over pop-ups. Sometimes they get very confusing if they're big. Anyway, that's just me being old-fashioned. So this is the Reticulum Meshchat software, latest version 1.18. Again, I want to install the previous one for various reasons, which is 1.17 at the moment. So I'm going to click on that, and there it is, and I'm going to download it. And I want the one, you can see there's a Windows version, which is an XE that installs the program. On Windows, there's a Mac DMG that probably installs it on an Apple Mac OS system. And I want this one, the app image for Linux. And an app image is something you can just run straight away. It doesn't need to be installed, it just runs the file. So I'm going to click on that and download it. Don't know how big it is. Here it is downloading. So, oh, it's not too big. Well, 150 megabytes is huge. However, it downloads in a couple of seconds these days with modern internet technology. So it's downloaded. That's nice. Let's just go and have a look, see if it's really there. Where's my file manager? Let's have a look in downloads. Yeah, there it is. It's downloaded, 160 megabytes. So that's nice. I could run it in the downloads directory, but I don't want to because quite often this directory gets very, very full of files and all sorts of downloads, and then you can't find it when you want to run it. So it makes more sense to put it somewhere where I can find it. So I'm going to hit Control-N to open a new tab. Not a new tab, a new window for the file manager. And I'm going to put it somewhere. Where would I put it? I could put it in the home directory, which has already got stuff in it, as you can see, in files, which is a bit messy. So I'm going to create a new directory for apps. I'm going to call it apps. So you click on the three dots here. Let's do that again. Include new folder. And I'm going to call it apps with a capital A, like all the other folders. So there it is. It's there now. And all I'm going to do, actually I can do drag and drop. The lazy way, let's just drag and drop that from there to there. And that seems to have done it. What you can do, if you want to access this quickly from the desktop, is on the Ubuntu desktop there's an icon called Home. And if you right click on it and say Open in Terminal, it'll open the terminal window to the folder where that file is stored. I can't show you that because the Home icon on the desktop is on the other screen, which you can't see. And if I drag it onto this one, it pings back. So I'm not going to worry about how to overcome that. I'll just use the command line. So let's use the command line. Here we are. Where are we? Okay, we can see various things. Oh, there it is. There's a folder. Let's call them folders called apps already. So let's change into that. And let's see what's in there. There's one file, the one I just put there. Reticulum Meshchat. Okay, so that worked. You can't run it straight away. You have to set the permissions to do this. And I've got a copy paste I can use to do that. Where is it? Another chmod command. Again, Control-C from a web browser, notes, and then Control-Shift-V for a paste into a terminal. So it's a chmod command plus X gives it execute permission because we want to be able to run this or execute it. And it's the same file name, I think. Yes, it is, because I haven't changed it. Okay, so I'm going to press enter. Ta-da! So now it's executable. And now we can run it. So let's get the run command. I'll just copy paste it again, which is just put a / in front of the file name. Control-C. And let's put this over here. I'm going to clear the screen. Control-L. So that's a bit nicer. Control-Shift-V to run it with / to alert, and you get an error. Yeah, app images require Fuse to run. This is an app image, and Fuse is not included in the fresh install of Ubuntu, which is what this machine is. It's freshly installed just a few hours ago to make this video, because I've noticed sometimes people make videos and they show you how to do something and it works, but when you try it, it doesn't work because you've got packages managing, especially for compilers and things. So what I do when I make a video is have a freshly installed operating system that doesn't have anything in it, any extra tools, so that I can see when it's not going to work. And here's a great example of that. It doesn't have Fuse. So what do we need to do? We need to install Fuse. And I actually Googled the right file name to look for, and it's actually libfuse2 you need to install. You have to just Google these things or look it up somewhere. So Control-Shift-V. So you have to install this package called libfuse2 to be able to have Fuse in your system. Some distros of Linux actually tell you you need to install something, and you can just copy paste it from here to here. This Ubuntu didn't do it, so let's install it. Doesn't take too long, I'm sure. And there it is. Now, maybe it'll work, having installed Fuse. So we do /filename. Oh, looks better. And it's opened on my other window, other screen. So I'm going to, oh yes, by the way, you can see this is the messages popping up from the running of that program. There's a few messages like couldn't load a config file. It's because it's the first time it's run. There wasn't a config file. So it's created one. And later on, if you want, you can go and edit this config file to put in extra nodes and relay type repeaters. It's not what they're called, but you can set all these things up in the config file. Anyway, I'm not going to do that now. So it's running. Let's go over to the other window. We have a screen on the other laptop. Whoops. And I'm going to drag it across here so that we can see it. So there's Reticulum running. Reticulum Meshchat, I mean. And what are we going to do? We're going to add the RNode, the radio node that I plugged in, which is not there at the moment. Default interface is the one I'm using. I'm going to be typing messages on. So let's add an interface. And what type of interface is it? It's going to be an RNode interface. Okay, let's give it a name. RNode. Call it that, why not? And what port's it going to be on? It's our favorite USB 0, which is always at the bottom. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, that's interesting. It's not at the bottom, it's second up from the bottom. You really have to watch these things. If you're in a hurry, read it before you click it. Good advice for life. So there we are, USB 0 frequency. It's an 868 megahertz ISM band, and I know where it is. It's not. It's 867 500 is the frequency. And then this is enter the frequency in hertz. That's a lot of zeros on the end, 3 zeros. So there's 3 zeros on the end, and now we've got 867.5 megahertz, which is the frequency I want. The bandwidth is 125 kilohertz that people are using at the moment. Let's just scroll up a bit. Transmit power, the maximum you can get from that little device is 22 dBm from the Heltec V3. spreading factor should be 9, and the coding rate should be 5, which is that one. I'm not sure what the 4 colon stands for in front of it, but it's that one, to give a spreading factor of 5, a coding rate of 5. So that's it, all done. 5, 9, 22, 1, 2, 5, 8, 2, 7, 5. Yep, that's correct. So let's hit add interface. Ta-da, and you can see now it's appeared RNode 1 is a radio interface, which is disconnected because you have to restart this program, as it tells you at the top here, to load the new settings. So you do restart, and it can't really restart from a terminal, so you have to run it again like that. And it's popped up, of course, again on the other screen. So I'm going to move it up to here, whoops, so that we can see it like this. And hopefully now, when I look at interfaces, yeah, there it is, RNode 1 is now connected. So it's working. Very nice. If I send a message, it'll appear at the other station as coming from anonymous peer. You see a lot of those. So let's change it to something else. And I'm going to use the identity of this machine, which is T480A, because it's a ThinkPad T418. It's number A, the first one I ever got. So save that. I don't know where the message came from. These codes are used to uniquely identify this node so that messages can be sent to it, and it doesn't use the TCP IP stack, so you don't need an IP address. Think about that. You don't have to think about DNS servers or any routing or logging in or signing up anyway. You just send out into the mesh this hash, and it will get to that node if there's a path. And there may be several links hopping from one node to the next, just like Meshtastic, which is nice because it's independent of the internet. Even though it can work through the internet, it doesn't use the TCP IP stack. And on radio, you can use it with the RNode that I just showed you, which is on 868 MHz ISM. You could also use it with ATTRS or something, although you shouldn't, because it would be illegal, because this system is encrypted, has quite good encryption, and for amateur radio purposes it's illegal to send data using encryption. It has to be in clear text or open, so you can't use this system, I don't think, on amateur radio. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you can turn off the encryption. But you can actually use any interface you've got which will allow data to be transmitted at 5 bits per second or more. Now 5 bits per second is incredibly slow, but as long as it can manage at least that data rate, then this system will send and receive messages over it. So you can use Morse code. Someone asked me the other day if you can use smoke signals or infrasonic sound bursts. I think all of those things will work as long as you've got the right interface. Anyway, enough waffle. That works. The next thing to do, having given it a name so I can recognize what it is to send an announce packet. Let's see if this is going to work. So this is the node, and when I hit the announce button on here, then the white light should flash on the node showing that it's actually transmitted it. So let's do that. Oh, see the white light flash? It sent it. I'm just going to look at my other node on the floor. Yeah, the white light is flashing down there too. So it means that announce packet's being received on another node I've set up on the floor down there, connected to another laptop. So we can try sending messages between them. Let's do that. Before I do, let's have a look in here. Messages, because there are none yet. Announces of the announce packets that has been received by this node. There are none of those yet. I'm going to send one from the other side. So over here on this other laptop, I'm going to hit announce now. The white light's flashing on my node here, and there it is. That's the announce packet from the Huawei laptop, which I've called HUAW. If I click on there, you can see its hash. If anybody wants to write me, you can try. That would be fun. Actually, please do write to me at that hash and see if you can actually send me a message, because it's connected to the internet as well, so it'll come via the internet if we're out of radio range. So it seems to have worked. I'm going to have to move myself so that we can see messages as they appear. Put me there. So yeah, if you want to send a message to it, you would type it in here. Let's do that. Hi, enter, and it says delivered up there. That was very quick, wasn't it? And indeed, maybe it will have appeared down here. Yes, it has. You can't see that, but it has. What I'm going to do is send a reply. So from the other node, I'm going to send hello, enter, delivered, it says. Oh, there it is. That popped up really fast. Actually, that's a little bit suspicious, isn't it? It's a bit too fast. And there's a reason for that, you'll see. Let's go up here, because we're looking at this other node. And let's ping it using ping. And as you can see, it pings. That's the other node with a hash that's up here, same, yes. And it took 16 milliseconds. Now for a packet system using LoRa chirps on 868 megahertz, 16 milliseconds is pretty fast, and I don't believe it. And the reason is because it's not going actually via the radio link. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi on the laptop down there. And if I turn off the Wi-Fi like that, then any data that goes between these two systems will have to use the radio node. It'll force it to use the LoRa mesh. And I think we'll notice a difference. I didn't do this the other day when I made a video about Linux Mint. So let's ping it again. Aha. Doesn't work. That's interesting, isn't it? Let me announce myself again with announce. It flashes down there, and I'll do it on the other end. Let's do an announce. Okay, and you see when I did that announce that this is updated now. It was a few minutes ago, and now it's a few seconds ago. So it's there. We can see it. Let me just try pinging it again because this has to work. Ping failed. Oh, that was the previous ping. Because it needed to re-announce itself on the network, so the system could see it came via radio and not via internet, probably. So now the ping has worked, and this is the other end. Duration, 13,000 milliseconds. That's a bit more believable. Well, wait, that's 13 seconds. That's quite a long... No, wait. This is 1,349 milliseconds. So it's 1.3 seconds is how long it took for an RNode to send a ping message to the other end and the other end to respond back. And that's a bit more believable. 1.3 seconds is what I'd expect, not just a couple of milliseconds. Also, you'll notice that now, because it went via the radio link, and this is a good way to confirm you are using radio, then you see these results here. So signal quality, 100%, obviously, because the two antennas are just 2 meters apart. And the signal level, RSSI, is minus 34 dBm, which is a very strong signal, which you'd expect over that distance. And the signal to noise ratio is 11 dBs, which is very nice. So this is proof that the signal came via a radio link and not through the internet. It's worth checking these things sometimes. That's the previous ping. It pops that up after 30 seconds if it failed. So let me just send another message to make sure it works. Just send some random characters. Over the radio link encrypted, yeah, that came over there, and now I'm going to send some random characters back, like that, and boom, that appeared as well. One thing you have to watch out for is sometimes you send a message and it doesn't appear, and you don't know why. And it turns out that you have to scroll this page up and down. I can't at the moment, but when it gets more full of messages, when new messages arrive, the page doesn't move up to show them to you, so you don't know you've got a message. And this has confused me many times when messages didn't arrive. You have to scroll the page up. That reminds me, you can also look at this system not using the app Reticulum Meshchat, but you can use a web browser because this program running actually spins up a little web server, serves up a web page, and it's quite often better to use the web browser to look at this. So let's do that. I need to remember the port number. So it appears on localhost. Actually, I can just copy paste it, and it has a port number. So let's do that, Control-C, and let's go back to the web browser, Chromium. Where's my mouse gone? Okay, Control-T for a tab, Control-V. So you have to open up localhost, which is 127.0.0.1 is an IP address of your local machine. The word localhost also works usually, but not always, depending on routing settings. And then the port number, which in this instance is 9337. That could change. Well, it could be different on your system. I think once it's set up, it doesn't change, but who knows? You have to try that. So there it is. You can see now, this is the web browser, and that tab is showing the same screen as we were getting before, but now it's looking or being viewed on a web browser, which means you can actually access this from other machines in the network. If you know the IP address of this particular Ubuntu system, and of course you can access that if you've got set up a VPN or something from outside on the internet, so you can remote control this node very easily. Anyway, why did I do that? Yeah, sometimes you can set up alerts. Sometimes it even asks you, do you allow this web page to make announcements? And if you say yes, and normally I would say no, but in this case I would say yes. So when somebody sends a message, it'll pop up a web browser alert saying you just received a message, like WhatsApp does if you use web.whatsapp.com. Same thing. That's quite useful. The other reason for using the web browser is that somewhere in the manual it says for audio it's better to use the web browser than to try to use the app. So that's another reason to use it. Let me do another announce, just so that we know it's here and the lights are all flashing. Yeah, everything's working still. That's nice. Talking of audio, maybe I should try sending some audio. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I wonder if that would work. I need to make sure that the audio output is going to go, no, it's the wrong one, to the right place. So this is something I forgot to do in a previous video. I need to make sure, because I'm looking at an HDMI video output, I'm recording it with OBS on another computer. Output device, yes it is, HDMI DisplayPort, so you will hear it, I expect. So let's go back to the web browser again, Chromium, and there's no message entry window down there. That's a bit suspicious. Why is that? Wrong mouse. Let me just check that this is likely to work. Ah, it's because I haven't selected that. Okay. Click on there. That looks better. Now there's a place to enter messages. So let's make this full screen again. And it seems to be working. So I'm going to send an audio message from the other end. Ah, wrong one. I wanted to move that. Again, let's send an audio message and see if it gets received. So how do I send an audio? I'll show you on here. How to send an audio message is you press this button that says add voice. Well, let's do it anyway. So you click on that and then it asks you to select a codec and then it sends it. Only problem is it won't do it at the moment because I'm using the wrong mouse. Let's use the mouse on the other machine. I've got 3 computers sitting here. It's confusing. Right. So you click Add Voice. It asks you to choose a codec. Oh, there are only 3. Actually, the later versions of this program have more codecs. Or maybe it's because I'm using a web browser that there are not so many. So this one, I think the number is the number of bits per second. So 1200 bits per second. Click on that. And, oh, this is the first time I've done this. Do you want to leave microphones allow? This is permissions again. And it says it's recording. It was recording blankness until I pressed that button. So there's 10 seconds of something. And then you hit the button again to stop the recording. If I try playing it back, probably you won't be able to hear it. Probably I won't either.
Yeah, it says it's recording.
Oh.
It was recording blankness until I pressed that button. So
Okay.
10 seconds or something.
It did work, and you heard it. I could see on the sound meter on OBS. So that worked. What I'm going to do is send a recording from the other end. I don't know what that sounded like because I couldn't hear it, but 1200 bits per second of encrypted audio is pretty nasty audio quality. Reminds me of the 1980s when we were developing stuff that did things like that. That's a different lifetime. Anyway, let me go over here and let me just send a message again just to make sure it works. Yeah, oh, it popped up. And I think it might have scrolled to show me that PP. Okay, now I'm going to send an audio message from here. So I'm going to click on audio and codec 1200 again. I'm not running it in a web browser, so it may be that it doesn't work. It's running on the app. Let's see if that works. So I stopped it. It's a 6-second long audio, 996 bytes. That's a very small number of bytes for audio, 6 seconds long. Now, it won't have been sent yet because you have to actually send a text message after you recorded the audio to get sent with it, and only then is the audio sent. That's a little bit, I find that odd, but anyway. So I'm going to write here audio and then press enter. So it sends it, and it's now sending, and maybe you can see the white light is flashing on this node because it's sending and receiving data packets, and it's taking a while to send those. It's 1 kilobyte roughly, but it's done it now and it's arrived. So what I can do now is I can try playing it. I'm not sure if you'll hear it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it says it's recording. It was recording blankness until I pressed that button. So there's 10 seconds or
Well,
something.
looked like it worked. Looks like you heard something. And maybe that was overloading the audio input of my video recording here on OBS. It looked like it was hitting the end stop on the signal meter, so maybe it's a bit too much. And if it is distorted due to high levels, then it's not as, well, it's making it sound worse than it really is. I'll have to check that afterwards, and sorry if it was. I'm not going to remake this video. As you know, I don't like editing videos, don't have time, and then exporting them, rendering them. So I just make them for real, which is why you see mistakes. And I think it's a better learning experience. In fact, if you see me make mistakes or things that don't work and I have to work out why, come up with a quick fix, I think I learn more from those sort of videos than the really slick ones where everything works first time, because real life ain't like that, is it? Anyway, probably that's enough from me. Please make some comments below, and like and subscribe if you would like to, at least like, and let me know your experiences, and hopefully you'll be using Reticulum Meshchat sometime in the near future, and we'll be able to communicate. That'll be fun. And again, if you're outside radio range, it just automatically can be routed via the internet. I haven't set up config files yet for the Reticulum Meshchat. I'll be having a look at that in the near future, and the Nomad network, where you can set up simple text-based websites and BBSs and things which can be accessed, which looks like a lot of fun, which is something you can't do so easily with Meshtastic. Also sending audio clips and files. Oh, I don't think I have a picture file on the other computer. I could send a photo, but you can just attach a file here, add files. If you click, wrong one. If you click on add files, then you can choose a file, small one, just a few kilobytes, like a small image, JPEG or something, and it actually works. You can send pictures from one end to the other via the radio link. I'll try that. Maybe I'll put it in the next video. Anyway, that's enough from me. As I said, please make comments. It's interesting to hear how you're getting on, and I hope that I managed to help somebody get something to work. So goodbye for now. See you in the next video.